Greetings and salutations, artists. This is Wolfphototech, and here I'm with another delightful video. This time it is Beasts of Legend, Fairies Tale Creatures. Fairy Tale Creatures. It's really hard to read because I have mild dyslexia. So my brain kind of just starts smashing all those shapes together that they use. Right off the bat, this is from Legendary Games. And MSRP is for $12.99. And it's a fairly thin book. This is compatible with your 5th edition adventures. You open it up. By the way, that's a ridiculous number for it to track stuff by. So there you go. You get basic information on the book right up here, as well as the table of contents of the various creatures right here. Then you get yourself the Boogeyman, which is a 2-page spread. You get a nice section on the stat block right here. And then it ends out here. And then you have a nice little section on the lore behind the Boogeyman, as well as a nice piece of artwork. And the same thing goes for pretty much every other creature in here. You have the stat block first and foremost, and then you have the lore of the creature, and then you have other information following after that. Like some creatures have a society in which they live in, and others have ecology sections and such and such. So you have an interesting mix of critters in here. There is a few weird moments where you have something like that, where here's the stat block for one creature, here's the lore for it, and then you have the start of another creature's lore box with the tail end of its artwork here. And you turn the page, and there's the rest of the artwork, and then there's the rest of its stat block and its lore. The artwork is actually quite nice overall. The stat blocks it's big and easy to read. However, they are typically very long. There's the inscribable red cap right here. And then the rest of its stat block here. A little bit of lore right here on the back end. And then you have the Jabberwock. And I do believe that is enough of that. There's a few more creatures in the book that I'm not going to show off, as well as the tail end where they throw a few advertisements in the OGL back there. And the overview section is over. Now on to the review section of this book. First and foremost, it has a, for the price, it's nice. It's a nice little small book. So you can have a dozen of these out over the table, and you can have them open to various pages, and it's really nice to have books about this size. However, there are a few problems with this book. First and foremost, you notice that a lot of stat blocks go from one page to another. They just do that. And then you also have a slight brown background, which is not terrible because they chose to use black instead of another mid-range tone color. Everything is fairly flavorful in here, and it's really neat. I just really hate the whole stat block starts on one page, and then you have to flip a page to get to the rest of the stat block. That is going to be a set of losses and points for this, because I do say having to flip a page and then flip back to the other page constantly to read the whole stat block to run a creature is very annoying in itself. If you have a bunch of creatures on the table and you have to flip pages to go from one creature to another, this is kind of the reason why a lot of people do the whole they only have a group of creatures, like nothing but orcs, nothing but goblins, nothing but gnolls. They typically use only like 2 or 3 creatures. Typically the same they typically use one creature in single or multiples in an encounter, or they only use 2 creatures that happen to be near each other in the book, right next to each other, so they can bookmark them. But they typically avoid using 3, 4, or more creatures because that becomes more complex and it becomes harder to track in the book flipping around. That is the reason why I like Beast. I love these boxes of monster cards for Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, because having cards you can just set out and you have all the essential stat blocks really makes it easy to run multiple different creatures at the same time. This book is a small publication from Legendary Games. By the way, Legendary Games is one of the few companies that produces for both Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition as well as Pathfinder 2nd Edition, as well as Pathfinder 1st Edition material content. So, if you want more Pathfinder 1st Edition content, look up their stuff. But they also, toss that aside, this book it really needed to not do the whole cut a stat block between. I could probably just open this at random and just have like, hey, why does X creature have the stat block start on one page and then go to another? And it only happens a few times in the book. Say like inscribable red cap section here, and then on to the next page, the other half of his stat block and actions and skills. If anything, they should have actually. I realize that they're saving pages by doing that, but this is one of those situations where you probably should have actually just gone and put. It screws with the whole book. Honestly, it's just because it's annoying. But that's annoying. Considering that it is a small book and you don't get very many creatures in it, this is probably around like a 3-star thing. So it only happens a few times when they split monster stat blocks across 2 pages in which you have to flip between. But yeah, this is a weak recommendation. Like if you had a little money and you wanted a slight increase in variety, you could buy this book for your 5th edition games and get a slight increase to your variety of creatures. However, you're not getting a high value of a lot of creatures. What's also nice about these books is it's all themed books. So each one of these little books is literally just about one topic, and you don't have to, if you read it and memorized a good chunk of it, you don't have to take it to the table. Where if you're running monsters, you can take a little book like this and stick this book in between a bunch of books in your bag, and you could maximize the space in which you have in your Game Master bag when going to places. However, the organization in this book, it's decent, but seriously, don't split stat blocks across multiple pages. It's annoying. So, it's a 3-star. It's a slight increase in your critter collection. You have neat abilities in here for various creatures. There's actually a good amount of flavor for all the creatures. and a decent built-in lore for all the creatures as well. However, yeah, it's just annoying. You know, you get like you get the Jub bird here, and like here's the Jub bird, and you got the Jabberwock. By the way, the Jabberwock stat block is on the other side, so you flip from here, you read this, that you're running the creature, and then you, for the last of its legendary actions, you have to flip over to this side for the last bit of its legendary actions up in the top corner, and the rest of this is lore. And then you got the Jub bird, which has all this, and then you have to turn a page to get to its reactions and its legendary action as well as its lore. That is annoying. My suggestion is probably shrink this artwork slightly, so you still have the piece of artwork right there, but you have more of the stat block on the main page. But this would have been probably a lot better if they didn't do that. I'm a little annoyed with this book. This is actually one of my older books. I got this way back towards the beginning of 5th edition. But there's a serious need to not split stat blocks across multiple pages in which you have to turn a page to see the whole stat block. Ideally, you should be able to see everything a creature can do on the pages that you're open to. Okay? So, this book, as I said, is about a 3-star. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, but it's a lot of cool stuff for a small book. But seriously, it's annoying to have to flip pages for reading just one creature. You had to do that if you have 2 or 3 creatures. You had to do that already. Switch between multiple sections in the book. Don't make us flip pages just to read one creature's abilities. Okay? Seriously. That results in people not using the abilities on the second page. Or the third page, anyways. So, thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoy this video, please share it somewhere else. And I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, a magnificent month. And see you next time. Ciao.